Hey everyone, welcome back to Brad's Bioactive Builds, where I do step-by-step, do-it-yourself, naturalistic reptile enclosures. In today's video, I'll be going over how I did the hardscape on this 8 foot wide, 4 feet deep, 6 foot high reptile enclosure. How I used insulation board, a new game changer product called Polygem Zoopoxy, added the detail to the fake rock, along with how I made the Dripwall waterfall right behind me. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. This is going to be part 2 of the build series, so for any new viewers, make sure to check out the first part in how I built this 8 foot wide, 4 feet deep, and 6 foot high, built from scratch reptile enclosure. That mainly covers how I did the framework and building out the water tub. I'll also add part 1 to the description below and at the end of this video. Alright, let's go. I needed to start cutting and adding insulation board to the inside. After having all my pieces cut to spec and test fitted, I started roughing up the back side of the XPS board so silicone would bond to it better. I found silicone also has a good hold to dry lock, so I painted some on the back of the XPS board. Wiped away any dirt, debris, or grease with rubbing alcohol, and applied a generous amount of silicone to the back of the XPS board. And used a little bit of Lexol adhesive where the insulation was going to lay and pressed it into place, holding it tight with some support. Continued installing my pre-cut panels, waiting 24 hours in between installing the next section. It helps when installing them if you can lock them all together so they have something to hold each other up with. For the hide, I had to jump inside and go ahead and trace it out. Once traced, cut it out with a hot foam cutter. Silicone the back and put it in its place. Installed a small strip of PVC board that will act as a guard for the front glass and also have something for the XPS board to tie into. This way the insulation board fits tight against the PVC strip. Then held everything down for 24 hours. Started spray foaming around the tub and then sprayed it down with water to help it cure quicker and denser. Added a little bit of detail with a hot foam cutter where some of my ledges were going to go. Test fitted a ledge. Traced out my marks for how I wanted the ledge to look. Cut out that trace with a jigsaw. Drilled some holes where I was going to mount the ledge to the inside of the enclosure, putting spray foam in those holes. This will help tie it all together once it all cures. Spray foam the walls and the edges of the ledges and put it into place. Replicated a second ledge and dropped it on top. And spray foamed it in. You'd be surprised on the strength that this method has. Added some accent pieces that I'll carve down a little bit later in the video. Drilled a hole at an angle so water doesn't go up through the plumbing. Installed the PVC pipe, held it down into place with some pressure, and went ahead and spray foamed it in. I'll go over in the next video what this is going to be used for. Now to start building out the drip wall, I had to go ahead and drill a hole for my 1/2-inch bulkhead, went ahead, sanded it down, and mocked it up into its place. Marked the spot where I wanted to drill, drilled a hole so I can see on the back side of the enclosure where I needed to cut out a 3-inch hole with my hole saw, finishing the job with a serrated steak knife. I wanted this hole to be bigger than my bulkhead so it makes maintenance work in the future more accessible. Went ahead and dry locked where I'm going to be putting the plastic cereal container that's going to act as a reservoir for catching my water. Added some silicone in the shape of the cereal container and stuck it into place. Mapped out where I wanted the drip wall to flow and started carving away. I carved it deepest at the top, tapering it down as it made its way to the cereal container. Hit it with a heat gun to tighten and harden everything up. Use some dry lock so I can do a water test in the future. Test fitted my 90-degree PVC elbow so I can make sure it seats where I want it to. Use Lexel adhesive on the seam of where the PVC board and XPS board meet. Went ahead and dry locked it all in. Drilled a hole to fit my PVC fitting. Drilled some holes where the water is going to flow out of the PVC. I will not fuse this piece into the 90-degree elbow, although I am fusing in the 90-degree elbow to the background, making sure the PVC pipe is as level as possible, holding it in place for a minimum of 2 minutes. Now to start working on the 5-gallon bucket that'll be on the outside of the enclosure that'll act as a reservoir that holds my pump for the drip wall. I drilled some holes, added bulkheads, different PVC fittings, hoses that'll act as my input-output for my pump. But pretty much I pieced together a few different parts to build an exterior canister filter. Also, I'll be adding filter foam in the 5-gallon bucket. For this whole build, I'll try to include as many materials and products I used in the description below. Dropped in the pump, drilled in a hole in the top to hot glue a desk grommet, so I can feed my cord through for the water pump, and snap the grommet top into place. Fused in a 1/2-inch PVC pipe to the bulkhead that's leaving the cereal container that's attached by a PVC union, and tighten down the hose clamp. Now for the top of the waterfall. On the outside back side, I fused in some more PVC fittings, attached the hose, which attaches to another PVC union. Installed some clamps to hold my hose. I only put 1 screw in the clamp so I can remove the hose with ease. The hose I had wasn't quite long enough, so I had to tie them together with an extension. Cut some insulation board for some ledges so I can trace it out around the top of the cereal container, so it'd be a nice snug fit to keep water in its place. Use Lexel adhesive to temporarily seal everything together. Dry locked it in. Built up the sides of the reservoir with insulation board. And gave it a quick test run to check the flow. Later in this video, I'll show how to conceal the top PVC fitting with easy access. Continue building up more ledges to have more surface area for the reptile to climb on, keeping in mind to have more basking spots so we can thermal regulate. Cutting it to add some character and detail on how I wanted my ledges to look. It's important to note that I'll lose a lot of this detail and definition with the top coat that I'll be putting on, but I wanted something to start with and be able to work with. But trust me, it'll all be worth it in the long run with this awesome product I'll be using. Cut out and added some boulder shapes, attaching it with spray foam. Now for the pink blizzard that comes, using a wire brush attached to a drill, carving out the background. I didn't want to carve below this line for a reason I'll go over later in the video. Use the shop vac to clean up all the shavings. Once again, using a heat gun to tighten everything up. To build up random spots, use some more spray foam. And there you go, spray foam and insulation board 90% done. I didn't want to build out the front of the hide yet, so it was easier for me to access what was behind and above the water tub. Now for this game changer product, Polygem Zoopoxy 307 Lite. To set up my thickening agent, I wrapped a garbage bag around a box. Make sure to wear a mask to protect yourself. Put some thickening agent into the box. Scooped out 50% part A. Use the powder of the thickening agent to slide it off the stick. And scooped up 50% of part B. Once again, repeating the process of using the thickening agent as a powder to slide it off the stick. sprinkled on some thickening agent. Zoopoxy is quite forgiving if it's not exactly a 50-50% blend, where other company putty epoxies have to be quite exact in measuring out the ratio. But pretty much you mix it together as if you were kneading pizza dough, making sure to get rid of any marbling, looking for one consistent color, and adding thickening agent as needed. You want to make them about the size of a hamburger patty. I usually make about 5 of them at a time. Water's going to be your friend to having it not stick to surfaces or your gloves. Dip my hands into some water so I can handle the epoxy with ease. Flatten it out so I can start pressing it into the wall. You want the thickness to be about 1/4 inch thick. You don't want to mix up so much of this to where it starts heating up and hardening before you have the chance to work with it. So I found working in sections has its best results. I found 20 minutes after the original application, using a sea sponge to add texture, works great. Thanks for the tip, Mike. Polygem Zoopoxy is also 100% animal safe, so no need to worry there. Real quick, making these videos takes some time, so if you've enjoyed this video or any of my other content, please consider commenting, and subscribing. It would mean a lot to me. Roughed up the water tub with sandpaper so Zoopoxy would bond to it better, but this stuff sticks to everything. It also cures underwater, just in case you were wondering. In addition, it doesn't weigh much at all, so it's a better alternative than cement or grout. I'll go over in the next video what I'll be using this PVC fitting for. Now back to the drip wall. Adding some Zoopoxy around the 90-degree PVC fitting, pushing it in with a stick to get in the deep crevices. I made everything watertight before I was going to install the cap to the drip wall. Mapped out how I wanted the cap to look, and carved it out to match the inside imprint of the drip wall. Dry locked it in for extra protection and where I won't be using Zoopoxy. Although I will be using Zoopoxy on the inside, but not where I'm going to be using spray foam to attach it to the background. Use spray foam as an adhesive to stick it to the background. And use spray foam in random spots to add some character to the hardscape. Applied epoxy pretty far down in the cereal container to make everything watertight and stronger. Went ahead and marked some holes, drilled them out to try and replicate stalactite using spray foam. When it cures, it'll hang and give me something to work off of when adding Zoopoxy. I got mixed reviews from family and friends on whether they like them or not, but let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Added some more waterproof protection on the inside of the hide. Wipe down any grease, dirt, or oils so I can start prepping it for the drainage layer. This is the reason I didn't carve below the line from earlier. I wanted this part to be as smooth as possible. In the next video, I'll go ahead and explain how I engineered the drainage layer for a large reptile that likes to dig, so it doesn't disturb the clay balls or leca at the bottom. But I did that around the whole enclosure outside of the hide. Taped off where the hardscape met the ceiling and the side trim, and where I didn't want the material to get all over. This is so I have some nice clean lines where the ceiling meets the hardscape. And then just applied it like I have been throughout the video, just a little bit thinner where it meets the tape. After freshly applying the epoxy, I went ahead and pulled the tape so it was as soft as possible. Then went ahead and detailed it all in. To me, that's just so satisfying seeing a nice clean line between the ceiling and the hardscape. Now that pretty much everything above the water tub is all done, aside from painting it, I can start working on the front of the hide. For this, I built out the front of the hide using spray foam. When building it out, you want to do it in steps, so it doesn't get so heavy and just fall over. Carved it out with a serrated steak knife to my liking. To the side of the hide, I wanted to add a planter, so I went ahead and cut some tubing for some drainage. Put the tubing into place and added epoxy over the top of it and waited for it to harden. I then started molding and building out a planter. Once I get my final shape, I'll wait for this to harden. Once hardened, I'll add a second layer, so I can add detail and texture to it. Did a water test so I can make sure it was draining the way that I wanted. Got Honey's approval to move forward with the project. Taped off the ceiling to protect it from any paint splatter. I'll be using Drylock Original and Quikrete charcoal color to get my base tone. I'm not using Drylock to waterproof. The Zoopoxy does an amazing job all on its own. I'm just using it to go ahead and match the color tones of all my other reptile enclosures. But I just painted the whole thing black, making sure to get it on the deep crevices, so it creates a shadow look when I go ahead and start to dry brush. When dry brushing, I get the color that I want, dip it in the can, take as much of the paint off as possible, and lightly touch the surface. That way it's only applied to the high spots, creating some really cool definition and character. This is one of the funnest and easiest parts of the build, and where your vision really starts to come to life. Added some different colors to the palette to incorporate highlights and inconsistencies throughout the Hardscape background, and use these different colors in different spots to help the viewer's eye flow throughout the enclosure. Tore down the protective paper and pulled the tape. Attached the PVC fitting with easy access. Having the calming effect of the Dripwall run down the background that will help bump humidity. Seeing it all tie into the fake rock ledges made from insulation board, covered in Zoopoxy, topped off with Drylock, really brings this hardscape together. Utilizing imagination is an amazing world when put into action. Constructing the hide under the pond area to maximize space, I'm really getting hyped to see how this enclosure will turn out once I finish everything. But let me know what you think of it so far down in the comments below. For the first video in this series where I build the enclosure from scratch, check it out right up here. And for the next video in the series, check it out right here, where I engineer the drainage layer for a large reptile likes to dig, mount the lights, install the front glass, build out the fans for air circulation, plant the plants, and add the finishing features and details to this enclosure. Thanks for watching.